Just a moment. Okay,
This meeting is being recorded.
fantastic. Hi, everybody. My name is Toby Pallett. I am the manager of the Cambridge Hub, which is a kind of a branch of the larger charity known as Student Hubs. Of course, we're based here in Cambridge, and we are a kind of a portion of this kind of national kind of student kind of engagement charity that does all sorts of different activities, volunteering, and the like. I will be talking to you today about how students have contributed and how we have managed to have students contribute in a meaningful manner around climate action and making climate accessible, with a specific focus on how we are able to support student innovation, and also how our projects, namely focusing on our Engage for Change project and a few others today, are very much tied to the university sustainability strategy and how we're able to achieve this goal of trying to make sure that our projects and programs are very much linked to what the university does. I'm just going to throw out that we are also sponsored by Cambridge Zero, hence why also we're here at Cambridge Zero Festival. And with that out of the way, let's get a brief kind of intro to what Students Hub is and then maybe who we are. So we are a national charity that works in partnership with the University of Cambridge, University of Bristol, Kingston University, and the University of Southampton. We were originally also Oxford Hub as well, but they left because they went more community focused and we remained student focused. What we believe in is this idea of the theory of change, and our vision and mission is about the idea that students and communities benefit from our programs, that the students that we train, deliver programs for, can benefit by becoming more active citizens for life through the programs that we deliver, and then the communities also benefit by having fantastic, intelligent, smart, innovative students go into their kind of workplaces, their areas, in order to use their kind of enigmatic brains to try and figure out what they can do to help them, essentially. As a charity, we engage in over 1,400 universities. We engage with over 1,400 university students through in-curricular and extracurricular programs each year, and that's across all of the hubs. And we are moving closer and closer to delivering environmentally focused programs in Bristol and Cambridge, and Southampton plans to expand. But in Cambridge, that I would say is our specific niche. It's what we're very good at, and the other hubs kind of look at us kind of for how to really focus on sustainability in the program and program designs. So at Cambridge Hub, we are the sustainability focused hub. Our projects and programs reflect students' passions for environmentalism, and we try to have an opportunity to give them to enact that kind of change either in the community or with the university. The kind of programs and things that I'll talk about today, mainly focusing on the first two, is Engage with Change, which we have 60 participants on average participate in Engage with Change per year. I know that some of you here actually were part of Engage with Change, so it's nice to see some returning faces. The Cambridge Carbon Literacy Training, or CCLP, it's also known as the project, where we train around about 200 students per year on carbon literacy, how to be literate about carbon kind of concerns, and we train them to kind of become trainers and to train others further on. So it's a very interesting program, which originally came from Engage with Change about 4 years ago. So it's a program we took from an existing program essentially, and we've expanded it, got more funding for it, and we've did so much more about. And then we have the Cambridge Climate Sustainability Forum, which hosts around about 200 attendees over the course of 2 days here in Cambridge. With around about, last year we had 18 guest speakers talking on a huge range of topics around environmental action, intersectionality and environmentalism, ecological grief, all sorts of different topics that we had panels and guests and things like that. So at the Cambridge Hub, as you can see, we are very focused on sustainability. And even though we're quite small, I would say, as like a charity, we are very big in our impact and what we do. So when it comes to how we engage with students, and this is what we're here to talk about, is about hard methodology, how we're so successful with it all. Our general principle for a lot of our programs, and namely for Engage with Change, is using what's known as a flipped classroom model. For those who might not be familiar with it all, it's a form of blended learning. And those who are not familiar with blended learning, well, flipped classroom model basically means that all the kind of like typical lecturing kind of learning that you would get in a lecture theatre happens outside of the classroom in their own time. So they do their reading, they will do their practical development on their projects, and then we would move that into the classroom for discussion where everybody brings those ideas together. So this is a really great kind of methodology that we have been using. And the idea behind it all is that everybody's able to bring something unique. We can focus on dealing with failures, working on topics, looking at successes, and kind of come together to kind of deal with things together. So a few people have just joined, so I can do that. Thank you. So when it comes to the other kind of key component, we also have something known as the community of practice. So I don't know if you're familiar with the community of practice as well, but the community of practice is came from Wenger. I say 1999 is the most recent update, but 1991 prior to that, it essentially is putting into kind of an old-timey kind of practice of those who are practitioners in a particular area are able to come together to explore topics and provide expertise and tackle things in a very kind of holistic way amongst each other. The sessions that we do for Engage for Change and other programs is the idea is that students go out in skill placements to do their intervention on environmentalism, deliver the project that they want to do, and then they come back in and they're able to kind of like take on holistic roles within the classroom in order to kind of like learn from it essentially. So that's the idea behind the kind of community of practice. You might have also heard of the community of ideas as kind of a counter side to it all, where people have ideation and they want to learn about something, so they come together to think about things. But community practice that's what it's all about essentially. And the idea behind all of this is that our training program, it provides development, peer support, and learning through that. And it takes a lot of pressure kind of off us, admittedly, as trainers, which I think is kind of great. But at the same time, it taps into the knowledge base of students as well. So hold on, more people coming in. There we go. So that's kind of like the background to kind of like our key components of why or how we deliver our training programs and how we manage to get students so engaged. So for the Engage for Change is kind of program framework. What happens is that we publicize the program, start date, end dates, and we recruit students and interview them. We get a whole bunch of applications, we sit down with them, we figure out which students might be best suited for the program during that term. We deliver over the course of the three terms, 20 in Michaelmas this year, 30 in Lent, and 10 in Easter time, just due to kind of that. And Easter time, it's PG focused only. Those are just niche little things. But basically what I'm trying to say here is that we can recruit them and we interview them, and we try to make sure that we find students whose ideas and kind of thoughts for the project kind of fit what we kind of expect and Engage for Change, and also just kind of gauge commitment levels, gauge whether or not if they're able to, what kind of support they might need. We even begin our kind of well-being right at the start. The program is 12 weeks long. And each week, students go into 1.5 hour kind of training sessions with us. That could be either online or in person. We deliver one or the other. And students carry out their intervention during the program. So like I said before in the flipped classroom, is that they come in, they go off and they come up with their project, and they come into the classroom with their learnings of the week, the challenges that they face, and we use that space maybe around a specific topic or a specific kind of problem that they have in order to use that time in the most beneficial way. Everybody's learning from each other, everybody's getting something from each other. It's also centered around the action experiment framework. I'll talk about that in a little bit. That's a couple of slides from now. And we also have a workbook that supports them. Again, this is to kind of help them just kind of, for us, I would say as practitioners and teachers, it allows us to understand how well engaging they are because the workbooks are visible to us. But also the workbooks allow them to kind of check in and just take in those kind of key elements week by week. It's nothing crazy. It's kind of a bit like a homework book that you might have got growing up, but that's the idea behind the kind of the workbook and the handbook. We also have it assisted by back row. And what we mean by back row alumni is people who've previously done Engage for Change. We have a Slack channel that all of our previous alumni are on. We also kind of connect with previous alumni for guest speaking, for people to come in to talk about their previous projects, to talk about how they dealt with problems and challenges and things along those lines. So that's the idea behind the kind of the program framework. So as for that action experiment cycle, this is something that if you're familiar with campaigning and advocacy, this is a kind of a cycle that is more kind of used along that. We don't use all elements of it, but we find it applies very neatly to what we're doing here for Engage for Change, because campaign advocacy is about, you come up with an idea, you try and deal with it, you try to get an action out of it, and you kind of try to like say yes or no, was that a successful campaign or not? And then you kind of like, okay, if it wasn't successful, what have I learned? What am I going to take from it all? If it was successful, oh, fantastic, but what can I still learn from that as well? And it applies, of course, very well to Engage for Change and a lot of our other projects, because in your intervention that the students do, so they go out and they look at an issue in Cambridge, they look at a problem and they think, okay, what's an issue with the university or the college? What kind of sustainability related kind of action do I want to do? And they may not even complete this in 12 weeks. So this is why it's very important, because if they're not able to complete that in 12 weeks, then we feel like Engage for Change kind of like falls apart, because it creates a lot of pressure. The idea behind this action experiment cycle means that, well, students can learn about the journey of it all, and they get comfortable with failure, and they become more resilient afterwards, and we can support them in that resilience as part of that kind of well-being side of it as well. So the first, I've kind of waffled a little bit on that broadly, but the first part of it is project formation and questions. So at the start, in the first 3 weeks of Engage for Change, students are kind of, they might have an idea for what their project might be, but we kind of take the time to sit them down and kind of go, okay, what kind of like form the ideas behind, let's think about what kind of questions you want to be asking, and then they'll explore that in the later weeks. Think about the action that they can take, think about who they can talk to, think about what things they need to do, where they need to go. They implement that, and then we review and refresh. Was it successful? Was it not? What things didn't go well? What things went well? And then that comes back into what's the issue dealt with, and then they can kind of repeat that. As it comes to the engaging students with kind of sustainability and their well-being, this is an incredibly healthy kind of cycle to have, because it doesn't just lineate success as an end goal and the start point. Essentially, you're not going from one end to the other. You're talking about the whole journey and a constant development. Things always need to go. Things always need to kind of keep moving upon each other. So that's the idea behind the action experiment cycle. So as for the actual projects itself, because the project formation the first 3 weeks is really kind of like broad, this is just an example of all the different types of projects that we've managed to kind of like go through. And we supported over 204 students at this point in the last 4 years. And you can see the huge range of different things that students are focusing on. And mind you, this is all within the university, and they all have to relate to the university strategy. And I'll be talking about how we managed to get that kind of connected into Engage for Change a little bit later and some of our other projects. But as you can see, lots of students focusing on recycling and composting, awareness education, kind of that area, not so much in travel, but the council, that's kind of what their main concerns seem to be, so they can focus on that. But there's like lots of different areas regarding that. So yeah, we kind of like make sure there's a wide range of different topics. The other fantastic thing that we do to support our students as well, that every single previous project that we have at hand is recorded and is also shareable and accessible to a student. So we have a whole list, we have a whole catalogue, anthology of all the different projects that students have done in order to use that to support their Engage for Change kind of like intervention projects in the future. So that's a really big thing, essentially. And then I've been talking about it, so go back to your action experiment cycle, just to kind of like frame it again, just also after they come up with the project, we will do sessions on the middle of the session about project management, communication, growth mindsets, other kind of elements. And then at the end, they implement and review it all. So they get opportunity to learn about public speaking, because they will be presenting what they have found to partners, to people from Cambridge Zero, from the sustainability team, from CISL, all different groups of people who are might related to their particular kind of project implementation or their intervention. So that's why it's really important. And even if, and the important part of the showcase, it's not about, again, what have they managed to achieve right at the end. It's about what have they done and how they're moving forward with it all. Because a lot of our programs and a lot of our projects within the Engage for Change program do not finish within the 12 weeks. They continue onwards forever. Hence why we've got the literacy project and the Cambridge Climate and Sustainability Forum. They're just examples of that. So when it comes to Wellbeing support. We have a huge emphasis on that at the Cambridge Hub. Each of our sessions have a check-in at the beginning, where we just kind of make sure that we have established rules on what kind of things are comfortable to talk about in our sessions, and we make sure that everybody is kind of feeling okay about the things going forward. We take lots of little notes on these kind of things, and we pay particular attention to students that might need particular support right at the start in the interviews. There's also team support. So we have program coordinators for Engage for Change, and it's the same for other projects and programs where they are able to support students outside the 1.5 hours of training. So they always have a person that they can particularly contact and have that support when they need to. We also try to provide, if we can, additional sessions in Tea and Talk, so places where they can decompress, network, have an opportunity. We've had additional sessions in the past on confidence building. We even have guest speakers from Cambridge Zero. We usually provide drop-in sessions every Friday in the afternoon where students can go in and just talk explicitly about the strategy. I'll talk about it a bit more. But the idea is that this isn't just they do a project, they come back into a classroom, they talk about it, and then off they go again. It's about a continual kind of space where they're able to get that support and need and help whatever they need to, and not feel, I don't know the right word for it is, not feel kind of like, oh, maybe patronized in the fact that we're always around to help them, but just knowing that we are there and that we're able to provide that support when we need to. Yeah. So that is another thing. And one last thing also is that 2 of our sessions that we usually do every single year is on ecological grief and resilience. And I do think that's incredibly important in the realm of sustainability, because we have found more and more students, particularly those born after the 2000s, are very have problem. Ecological grief is at the front of the mind. If you're not familiar with that, it's about the continued ecological effects on the world, climate change, things like that, and the associated stress and anxiety alongside this all. So we do sessions based on that as well to help talk through those kinds of areas that could be quite stressful for them. So something for you to know about that. So that is our wellbeing support kind of on it all. And just to kind of show how effective, when you think about that, we have 60 or so students every single term, so every single academic year going into Engage for Change. And these are kind of the results. 95% of students agree that participating in Engage for Change has enhanced their well-being. Students agree that participating enhanced their whole university experience and like meeting other students. Loads have talked about professional skills, and even how they agree that they feel better understood how to use the skills to create sustainability related change after the projects. So that's a great opportunity for them. It's also, we take a lot of pride in these stats essentially, and I think it kind of goes to show how well supported these students are when it comes to wellbeing support through the numbers that we see here. So as I move kind of navigate through different kind of topics, we're going to talk about the kind of how we manage to connect to strategy. So we just talked about the kind of wellbeing, the framework. Now we're on to kind of the strategy side of things. So when it comes to the university strategy, it is a massive and vast entity with many pages. And if you consider you have 1.5 sessions and we do flipped classrooms, well, that means that we're not sitting for 1.5 hours per week to talk about the university strategy and to tell them all the different areas that they can go in and things like that. It's incredibly vast and incredibly broad. As a result, we do not actually do focused sessions on that. What we do, though, is that we encourage students to come up with ideas, go off on their own, find something that they want to do, and then try to connect it to the strategy through support sessions. So like I said, we have support sessions with Cambridge Zero, with us, with our coordinators to kind of talk about what kind of things that they could do which connects to the university strategy. They can look at previous examples, previous projects to kind of help them as that one. Because of that focus on independent learning outside of the classroom, it takes a lot of that pressure away from that valuable time that we have. Again, University of Cambridge students are very tight. Their time is precious, and we want to make sure that by doing what we can at once per week, that they're able to still do everything they need to do in the degree and still get something very valuable in the interim, basically. So that is kind of how we do that. And because of our partnership with Cambridge Zero, they provide, of course, those kind of sessions as well. People from Cambridge Zero will usually come in to kind of provide advice. Many of the Cambridge Zero team previous Engage for Changes. And so a lot of people from there, they can provide real experience to help students with it all. Again, we have that continually updated list of projects they can use. And also regarding the strategy, everything at the end of it all is showcased with partners and members of the university community. And we kind of like make sure that everything that we do along the lines kind of deals with an area that can tackle with it all. So like I said, I'm not going to go into huge depth because it's a huge document, but the idea behind it all is that we will have the expertise around it and perfectly supporting, scaffolding these students in order to make sure that they are relating what they want to do in the projects into strategy. So I've got some cheesy slides on student reflections here, so you can have a little read if you want to. But ultimately, students have found that this kind of space and engage for change is an area which is understanding. It's an area where people can fail and learn from it all. It's an area and space where people can kind of turn the kind of difficulties of environmental issues into an exciting prospect, into a professional prospect. It's an area where people can have that final, get that drive that they move forward to kind of get something that they've been kind of in the back of their mind off the ground. I'm particularly proud of like this particular quote. I'm allowed to say his name. His name's James Carey. He was an Engage for Change last year, and he was been thinking about doing an app which kind of like calculates how much waste when you do online clothes shopping kind of like does, like it calculates how much waste and carbon footprint per thing you would buy online. And he was like, I just wants to do it, but he never had the space or the structure or the scaffolding or the support in order to do that. And we gave him that space. And it was related to the sustainability strategy about the lowering carbon footprint for students and also the general public. And I'm very proud of James in this one, and he won an award for this particular project as well last year. So just a little highlight of kind of like the impact and I think of Engage for Change has on students, and the something that students should be very proud of. So moving from there, navigating different spaces and areas, we're moving from here into carbon literacy. And the reason I bring forward carbon literacy is that it doesn't run in the same vein exactly as Engage for Change, but it uses the same general principles that we try to implement when it comes to kind of all of our projects and programs at Cambridge Hub and at Student Hubs. So the Carbon Literacy Project is a training session essentially, where students can essentially get free training on how to be carbon literate, to learn about all sorts of different areas of environmentalism and ecology, and how to be more mindful in the years to come, essentially. So every single year, we train around about 200 students, which is massive when it comes to this. And a lot of our participants recommend it to others, and I recommend it to you as well. It has evolved into branching out into local schools. It complements Engage for Change. A lot of Engage for Change is to carbon literacy and vice versa. It's something that we are very particularly proud of. And as for the design, it follows that kind of similar model in the same way. So it is a lot more structured, admittedly, because of the general content needs to be packed into 2 virtual sessions. But it's, again, a lot of our programs are online or in person. And the idea behind it all is that they learn in a session, that they go out, implement and self-study outside of it all, and they come back and they try to bring their learnings into it all. It's like topic focused, and it's not about being just kind of like told things essentially. So it's a very interactive way of learning, and it's something that we wholeheartedly believe in, and it's something that fits very nicely into our module. We also have it where students like can be on the trains, but also let people become trainers afterwards. That can create more trainers, so they have this kind of trickle-on effect of more people becoming carbon literacy trainers, which helps more people, which is great, and they get certification at the end as well. And that's it for me. I feel like I've whizzed through it all, I typically do, but I just wanted to highlight at the end of it all that this session was all about kind of making sure that you can see kind of how we deliver what we want to deliver here at Cambridge Hub, and kind of how we provide well-being, how we tie it to the sustainability kind of strategy here. Right now, we have applications that are open for Engage for Change, and we have spaces open on the Carbon Literacy Project. So if you're interested, you can go to our website, or you can contact us at hello@cambridgehub.org. Or if you're very interested in partnerships, or you want to learn a little bit more about Engage for Change and some of other programs, you can read our 21 and 22 impact report. So yeah, nice, short and sweet. I'm going to go and stop sharing at this point in time, and I'm going to go back into here and ask if anybody has any questions at all. All right then. With that then, I'm going to stop recording, and I want to say thank you very much for everybody for coming. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to type them into the chat box, or you can come in later. And thank you so much. If you are interested, please drop me an email or go to our website. And hopefully this was a very formative and interesting session for you. And yes, and thank you, Petia. It was great seeing you here.